Hey guys, Chris Cucoch here from Royal LePage Signature. Today I got a chance to sit down with our broker manager Michael Stothers, who's got decades in the business, and we got to talk about why we are feeling optimistic about the Toronto housing market coming out of COVID. Now, we tried to live stream it on Facebook. The technology didn't quite work, but we do have a great recording, so let's check out the interview right now. Have a great day, guys.
Very good.
All right, let's jump into it. Yeah, we're live on Facebook.
Fantastic.
Folks, I'm Chris Cucoch from Royal LePage Signature, and this is our first ever Facebook Live Zoom interview. Hopefully the technology is working. I think it is. You should be able to write comments or questions into the comments, and we will deal with them as they come in.
So Chris, just to speak to that, I'm Michael Stothers as well from Royal LePage. Now, Chris, where are you seeing the comments? I'm just seeing the typical Zoom screen.
I've got a Facebook Live screen up on my other screen, so I'll keep you up to date on the comments. So, as Michael says, Michael, the broker manager from our brokerage, Royal LePage, and today we're going to talk about why we are feeling particularly optimistic about the real estate market coming out of this pandemic. Michael, do you want to start it off with some thoughts on what you think is going to happen?
Sure. Well, actually, before we maybe jump into the, why I'm optimistic about, what I see happening currently. I do, of course, want to just touch on the fact that this has been a difficult time for everybody, and there will be people in very difficult circumstances right now, and we just trust that everybody is staying safe and obviously making the best of the situation. We are starting to see things in the market that are suggesting to us that things are now at the point they're turning around a little bit. I saw some stats recently that sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Are you there?
Recently?
I'm going to go on to airplane mode, see if that helps us.
It's all good. So you were saying you saw some stats recently?
Yeah, just suggesting the fact that we are up with respect to showings. And I'm just waiting for it to load here. I've lost my video. How do I get my video back?
You may have to click, there may be a button in the top right, one of the corners of the screen, like down in the taskbar maybe.
Yeah, got you again.
Got me again, we're back.
I saw some stats through our booking service, Broker Bay, that we are starting to see activity in the marketplace again. Showings are up kind of week over week. Some of the offers that we're able to track as well through the system is suggesting that increasingly people are looking at getting back out there and engaging again in real estate. So, we're starting to see signs of it. For the last, 4 weeks, I've been very optimistic with respect to where we are. I'm the one who's always pretty, hoping to hear good news from the Premier that would have us back to work. I think that's ultimately critical for, for everybody. From a real estate perspective, but really just from a, surviving kind of in life here.
Yeah, I think the four walls are starting to get a little bit closer every day, right? I mean, people just are looking to get back out and have some semblance of normal, whatever that ends up meaning over the next little while.
And of course, the government has implemented, a number of different support initiatives to assist people that are currently out of work. But in many situations, of course, that money will not meet the requirements in order to, satisfy the different aspects of life that most people have here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, maybe it puts a little bit of groceries on the table. It definitely helps. It's not nothing, but it's definitely not sufficient to maintain a normal lifestyle, right? Hopefully folks have, some savings or something that they can draw on over the next little while. But like you said, the sooner we get back to work, the better.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's really, when I take a look at why I am optimistic, again, just some of the research that I've seen recently is suggesting that obviously we had a very significant layoff between February and March where some 73,000 jobs were lost and people went into some form of support. But, my sense prior to that was that the employment situation was very good. We were at a very low level of unemployment. We had come through a period of time where we had record job growth. Some, over 400,000 jobs had been created over the past 5 years. And, as a result, the hope would be to say that, when we are receiving the clearance that we can go back to work in some form safely, that we will, start seeing these businesses, reopen and reemploy their people.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And I think something that I've heard you say, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is what we're dealing with is a health crisis, not really a real estate crisis, where the health crisis is affecting real estate and everything else. But fundamentals coming into it, and I think coming out of it, are still going to be pretty strong.
Yeah. Now, I guess really, when we talk about sort of the job situation as its entirety, I am very optimistic that most people will go back into, the employment that they had previously. But the truth as well will also be that there are going to be many people that we're going to know personally who will have lost jobs. Your former life was in the food services industry, and the reality is there are going to be small, family-owned businesses that have been in the market forever, and they may not have the ability to come through this, and that's going to be obviously very sad for all of those that are connected with that situation.
Yeah, I've been in contact with a lot of the folks that I used to be involved with in the restaurant industry, and it's tough for them right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, and they're in the same boat we are, just hoping to get back to work as soon as possible, right?
Now, the government has done some, again, so why am I optimistic? The government has obviously, provided some sort of support.
Mm-hmm.
There is a wage subsidy that's available to assist with various employers. They do have a loan that's available. And I understand just recently they are now starting to look at implementing some sort of rent support deferral type system for small businesses.
Yeah, I was actually just discussing that with someone. I don't think it's a deferral. I think it's actually a forgivable loan that they're going to give to the landlords, provided that they reduce the rent by at least 75%. So
that's correct.
Basically, the government will eat 50%, the landlord will eat 25%, and the tenant will eat 25%.
Correct.
Makes things a little bit easier to handle for them, I think, moving forward. Because I mean, even if they deferred, those 3 months rent, April, May, and June, and you get back to work on July 1st, and you owe the landlord, 4 months rent now. That doesn't really help that much, right?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, what sort of uptake there is on that particular program.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's very difficult for small businesses out there, and so when I talk about this sort of idea that many of us will go back to work, I temper that with the fact that some won't.
Yeah.
And some businesses, of course, that you personally, and I know personally, may not necessarily get back to work, and that obviously is going to be very sad. Now, we heard recently that a survey was put out, and really only about 6% of small businesses at this point are indicating that it's unlikely that they're going to open their doors again if this thing extends past the end of May.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, moving forward, and like you said, maybe it's going to take some folks out of the market if people aren't getting back, especially if this goes on for a longer time. But considering the way the marketplace was feeling before we got into this, some buyers out of the market is not necessarily a bad thing for us right now either, is it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, because we had a very strong market previously. And, I think that is obviously, again, one of the indicators that I'm looking at to suggest that we will be, in a good position when we come back out of that again. So first and foremost, we have to get everybody back to work.
Yeah.
We need to get people, out of the four walls, as you say, making a level of income that really supports their families.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the start of all of this. And the hope, of course, is that the employers will be able to re-engage people. But then when we look at the market, right, we were in a very strong position going into COVID. And the hope, of course, would be to say that when we come out of this, that many of those people who are looking to do something personally will be in a position that will allow them to get back to those plans.
100%. The market was starting to feel like 2017 all over again before we got into this. I mean, multiple offers on literally everything. And I mean, I've been tracking the Toronto real estate market for quite a while, and I suspect you've probably been doing it for a little bit longer than I have. And it's almost never in a buyer's market. In fact, it's almost never even in a balanced market. It's been a seller's market for about as long as I can remember.
Correct.
With, certain exceptions during particularly bad times. I don't think that we've even hit a seller's market, a balanced market right now. I mean, we looked at the the half market stats that came out last week, and we were down 70% in the number of sales, but we were down 65% in new listings, and the total number of sales, or the sale price, sorry, was only down 1.5%.
Yep.
And we were throwing that word around, compositional, right? That said, really it was predominantly because of what was selling, not because everything was selling for less, but the houses that were in that, let's call it over $2 million range, just weren't selling, because people that are buying those, they're buying them because they want to, not really because they have to, right?
Yeah.
Really weighing down the average.
Now, you were obviously in the field during the first couple of months of the year, and you were experiencing that firsthand. But the message that I was continually hearing from the people that were trading every day was just the competitive market environment that we were all dealing with. And so when we saw a good product come on the market that was priced fairly, that was receiving a lot of interest and ultimately a lot of offers.
It's
And
getting to the point where you could hardly get out to see the property, because by the time you get there for your showing, it would be sold.
Mm-hmm. And at that point as well, when we were submitting offers, we were talking, people had lots of conversations with me with respect to removing conditions.
Yeah.
And, we had now buyers, in order to be competitive, removing, finance condition and home inspection condition. In the condo market, the sellers were pre-ordering status and making those available prior to offer presentation time. So that the hope would be that on the evening of the offer presentation, that they could actually sell this thing firm. And in many cases they did, right?
In a lot of cases they did. And it was back to the way we were behaving in 2017, when you really had to look out for what was the strength of this buyer, because it's easy to write down this high number, but you kind of have to operate like every home is not going to appraise out at what it's sold for. So there needs to be a lot of extra money in the deal, right? If they're, going in with their standard, first-time home buyer, 5%, and that's about all they've got, well, maybe you want to look at a different offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where now that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And we're seeing it now as well with respect to appraisals, right? Where, some of the stuff that was potentially bought, more in the run-up of the market in the first quarter, we're now looking at, banks are looking at, reassessing the value of the property, and we may find situations where the buyer is ultimately going to have to come up with more cash in order to facilitate the closing. And it'll be hard for people.
Yeah, totally. It's going to make some interesting situations out there for sure. Hopefully everyone's able to deal with their closings and find short-term solutions just to get through this period. But we're supposed to be talking about being optimistic, not
we are optimistic. Right? We are optimistic.
We were talking offline about the pent-up demand. Can you speak to that, or what you're seeing in that area?
Yeah. Well, it was recently sort of explained to me in terms of where ultimately a lot of this may have come from. But when we look at the immigration over the last number of years, in comparison to, so if you look at population in comparison to sales, the actual, the number of trades that are actually occurring is actually below what would typically be the trade numbers based on a certain level of population. So for the last, call it 3 years, we've been trading under what that 10-year average actually is. So what that actually speaks to is the idea that we have this population out there that hasn't done something yet in real estate and is looking to do something in real estate. Yeah. And, I think what we are currently seeing with our market at a point is that, with obviously some of the uncertainty that are surround the current, health crisis that we're dealing with, is that we now, I think, will have some buyers that are going to look at this as a bit of an opportunity to actually get into the market. And, you reported obviously a very modest sale price, and I would say that's, it is accurate, of course, at this point. It will be dependent upon, geographic location, price point in the market, the category of home. All of these things are ultimately going to factor, what is the price seemingly come off. But there may be a bit of an opportunity right now to make a fair purchase and to include some of those conditions that we maybe weren't able to include in previous times.
Yeah, totally. I actually, over the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of folks that are out active in the market, and we were able to, for starters, actually negotiate on price as opposed to just trying to have the best offer. But we're also able to have financing and inspection clauses in there, which, as you spoke to earlier, we haven't had that very much at all.
You know, it will sometimes seem a little bit self-serving when, they hear it from the realtor, but like if I was ultimately looking at doing something in real estate, I'd be looking at it like today. If I had solid employment, if the finance piece was in place for me, and I was looking to, make a change in with respect to, my real estate situation or acquire something, I would be seriously taking a look right now in terms of getting into the market, because my sense will be that when we get the order that we can, start returning to work, I
Mhm.
would suspect that the market will heat up, fairly significantly. And as a result, I think, we're going to be, seeing some of the return to action that we did in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think that we've got a maybe 6 or 8 week opportunity right now to get something at a fair price before the market. I'm not going to say it's going to run away again like it was doing before, but I think that we're going to see it continue to go up over the next
Mhm.
little while. Anything else that you want to add? If you want to take out your crystal ball and make a prediction for where we're going to be at the end of the year?
Well, I'm actually going to defer to the experts that I've read at this point. Treb was suggesting that we will likely, return to where we were at the beginning of 2020, or call it end of 2019. We saw a very significant price rise in the first quarter,
No kidding.
and then of course we, for the most part, are giving that back. And I would anticipate that by the end of the year, we'll probably be somewhere around what we entered 2020 at.
Hmm.
If you really, sort of twisted my arm and said, give, the over under, I would actually say that we're probably going to have a little bit of a price appreciation, between our start of 2020 and our start of 2021.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the market surprises us to the upside a little bit. I think you're right
Hmm.
that there's a lot of folks that are just waiting for something to happen to feel confident that they can get back out there.
Yeah, the GTA
Well,
is an amazing place. It seems to always have this great thirst for real estate. And obviously, there were times when it does turn off. I unfortunately remember 2008, and that was a very painful experience at that point,
yeah.
but it was short lived. And then when we came back very solidly. And, we've obviously had a very strong run from that point going forward.
Well, they say here in Canada, and Toronto in particular, real estate is our second national pastime after hockey, right?
So apparently, this is all we got at this time.
That's all we got right now. We got to
Although we
focus.
are lobbying for golf as well.
Oh man, I can't wait for the golf season to start, especially the last couple of weeks now that we're starting to see the sun. I'm really looking forward to that coming back.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much
Absolutely.
for your time, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you. All the best,
Talk to
Chris.
you
Thank
later.
you.